Tonight, a Fox 5 investigation that is exclusive. The shocking pictures that show some air traffic controllers have their eyes closed and feet up as planes come and go. Good evening, everybody. I'm Derry Alexander.
I'm Ernie Anastas. Air traffic controllers dozing on, playing cell phones and laptops. These are not the images you want to see of the people who hold so many lives in their hands.
But a Fox 5 investigation reveals that for many months, the Westchester County Airport Control Tower has also doubled as a controller's break room, and sometimes it's hard to tell when the work ends and playtime or even nap time begins.
Investigative reporter Joel Waldman has our special report tonight.
Daybreak at the Westchester County Airport. It's a growing destination for 7 different commercial airlines, from JetBlue to US Air, and it's one of the busiest airports in the entire country serving the corporate world. 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., air traffic controllers guide these flights from the tower, serving nearly 2 million passengers a year. But is this what you'd expect to see in an airport where sometimes 100 planes take off and land in an hour?
Why'd you come forward to Fox 5 News?
I'm upset and extremely concerned about the things that are taking place at Westchester Tower.
Risking a career or worse, this Westchester controller is our informant, documenting many instances where fellow controllers have their eyes anywhere but on air traffic.
So we're talking about sleeping, reading, texting, all things that you say are forbidden. Why should the public care about this?
It poses an extreme threat to public safety. If someone's not paying attention, 100% attention between separating arriving and departing aircraft, you can have a near miss or worse.
The video and photos provided appear to show up to 10 air traffic controllers at Westchester Airport, where the job is all about watchfulness. They're supposed to be scanning the skies with their eyes, bringing incoming flights in safely, sending departing airplanes off without incident. But here, some look more like dozing passengers. They're apparently sleeping in the control tower while on duty. Others reading or playing on cell phones, even working on their laptops. FAA rules stipulate that cell phones must be in the off position while in the operation. Personal reading material and electronic devices are not permitted in operational areas. Sleeping is never permitted in the control tower. So what's going on here? The FAA would not agree to an on-camera interview. They did, however, provide us with an explanation. They say it all has to do with an elevator at the tower that's been broken for nearly a year with no money to fix it. The FAA sent us this statement saying in part that because the Westchester Tower elevator is out of service and because the permanent break room is 8 flights down, both the controllers union and the FAA came to an agreement to make the back portion of the tower cab a temporary break room. In an email to Fox 5, an FAA spokesperson said the use of cell phones is strictly prohibited in the tower. However, employees have temporarily been permitted to use devices for texting and email only on their personal breaks, but not when on position directing air traffic. But according to our source, the video shows controllers sleeping and using electronic devices while in position on the job in the tower, which the FAA has told us is not allowed. Under no circumstances are air traffic controllers ever allowed to sleep anywhere in the tower. But our source says controllers have been sleeping and using distracting devices at Westchester Tower for years, well before the elevator broke, and the source tells Fox 5 it's not difficult to get distracted while in the tower.
Can you describe the size of a control room?
The control tower is a small confined area, a 5-sided room, approximately 12-foot diameter.
And so if someone is using, let's say, a laptop computer, would that be distracting to someone who's on duty?
Of course it would, because the close proximity they would be to the person who's actually on duty. The person who would be using the laptop would be no more than 3 or 4 feet away from them.
So if you have, let's say, a game playing on a laptop because you want to watch a football game on a Sunday, it could be potentially very distracting to other people working that tower.
It can be extremely distracting and extremely dangerous.
Travelers at the airport were stunned when we showed them the pictures.
Oh, God, sleeping. My life is in their hands.
Air traffic insiders say sleeping on the job is the worst kept secret in the industry. At least 6 air traffic controllers across the country were caught napping last year.
Happens all the time.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Ann Whiteman was an air traffic controller at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport for 26 years up until 2009. She made headlines after blowing the whistle on the FAA for covering up what she described as serious errors and safety violations.
We had a controller that actually fell asleep, and you could hear him snoring over the frequency because he fell over and keyed his microphone button.
The FAA investigated Whiteman's claims, found its Dallas managers were intentionally covering up mistakes, and vowed to clean up the system. 4 years later, the FAA tells Fox 5 the agency is committed to ensuring the safety of our nation's airspace for the traveling public, and pointed to what it called a landmark agreement with controllers to reduce fatigue. The FAA made work rule changes, including giving controllers an extra hour of rest time in between shifts, and requiring FAA managers to work more early morning and late night hours to ensure greater coverage.
Has it helped?
It hasn't changed one thing at Westchester Tower in the way people sleep on the job.
People are still sleeping.
That is correct.
Alan Uriman is a retired safety investigator for the NTSB. He says it's vital that every member of the team in the tower pays close attention, even during the hours when air traffic slows down.
It's sort of like a traffic cop. Okay, he's a traffic cop for a school, and when it's busy, he's directing traffic. And all of a sudden he decides, oh, the traffic's not that bad, I'm gonna go in my car and take a nap. And some little kid comes out of school because he's called home or something and walks across the street and gets hit by a car. Is that okay?
There could be a situation where a plane that's not scheduled to come to Westchester all of a sudden has to make an emergency landing there. Is that correct?
It happens frequently.
And so you never know when you have to be ready.
You never know. You have to be ready from the minute you sign on to the minute you sign off.
In this video from Westchester Tower, the supervisor is openly using his personal laptop. He's supposed to be overseeing the tower crew.
Well, he should be fired tomorrow. If this video is of a supervisor working on his personal computer.
The consequences of not paying careful attention could not be more serious.
New information into the crash over the Hudson is first at 10 to 9.
Remember that mid-air collision over the Hudson River back in 2009 between a tour helicopter and small plane? The NTSB concluded the controller at Teterboro Airport was talking on a personal call.
The controller was found to be working alone, yet on the phone with personal business. What happened? We had a mid-air collision. The controller that originally handled the aircraft wasn't paying attention to the aircraft.
This Westchester controller has his head down on the desk. On another day, this same controller appears to be trying to find a comfortable resting position. Part of his problem could be that headset he's wearing. It's what he uses to communicate with pilots.
I can't tell what position he's working, but he's waiting for the next pilot to call to wake him up. That's his alarm clock.
The pilot is his alarm clock.
Another controller seems fast asleep while he's supposed to be working ground control. Here you see 2 controllers. One appears to be playing on his smartphone, while the other controller right next to him appears to have fallen asleep while reading his book. Sleeping and reading are both major infractions inside the tower.
It's quite concerning. I travel with my children. In fact, just this weekend we came home to see our family. I had both of my children on a flight with me. I want to make sure that they are traveling in a safe environment.
New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand sponsored legislation to ensure pilots have adequate rest between shifts and additional training requirements. All this came after a 2009 Continental commuter plane crash in Buffalo that killed 50 people. She wants the FAA to take a careful look at these videos and photos.
These images are extremely disturbing. If that is indeed the case and there are air traffic controllers falling asleep on the job, it has to be reviewed and investigated in full.
Last June, 4 people, pilot Keith Weiner, his wife, their 14-year-old daughter, and her young friend died in a fiery crash after their small plane plunged and burned in Armonk, just after takeoff from the Westchester Airport. That day, the plane took off heading north north, just like this one. It made it about a mile away from the runway. It tried to circle back before crashing into a heavily wooded area. The last audio transmissions heard were between the pilot and a controller at Tracon. Tracon deals with traffic en route in the New York area. The transmissions show the pilot urgently wanted to return to the Westchester Airport.
Say again? We're going back to White Plains. We need to land 16. Who is going back to White Plains? 10 Kilo Whiskey. 10 Kilo Whiskey, do you have an emergency? Yes, we're declaring an emergency.
The final cause of the crash has not yet been determined, but our informant says the controller in charge was not in the tower during the accident.
Supervisor was out of the tower cab for approximately an hour and 45 minutes prior to the crash, and right before he left the tower cab, he had announced that he was going down to grade some papers.
Grade papers?
Yes, that's correct.
So he was taking care of personal business on the job?
That is correct.
The pilot's last recorded transmission shows he was unable to make contact with Westchester Tower for an unknown reason.
Tower 1857. We can't go to the tower. Tower 1857.
His emergency could be so great, he doesn't have now time to go back to the radios and change frequencies back to the tower.
The FAA told us the audio indicates the pilot, Keith Weiner, was communicating with an entirely different air traffic facility, and the NTSB has not established what caused the crash. The controller in charge that day had nothing to say when we visited him at home. Were you outside the tower the morning of the crash?
Are you haunted by this crash?
Yes, I am.
In what way?
I have trouble sleeping. My conscience bothers me. I don't feel I'm the person I was a few years ago.
Do you feel controllers are taking their jobs professionally?
I think most controllers take their jobs extremely professionally, and I have a lot of respect for them. It's the few that are sleeping on the job, texting, reading, abusing their authority as a controller that really upsets me and disappoints me.
We spoke with the National Air Traffic Controllers Association. They've not given us an official response. We called each of the controllers shown in our story. None of them wanted to speak to us. We also contacted the Westchester County Airport manager. He had no comment and referred us to the FAA. The FAA says it consolidates the controllers' positions and rotates them several times per shift based on the complexity and volume of air traffic. However, controllers who fail to perform their duties because they're sleeping on the job can be suspended or fired. The FAA also tells Fox 5 News that air traffic controller management became aware of a portable TV stored in the tower. Since then, it's been removed, and they're investigating the matter. Darian Ernie?
You know, Joel, I mean, it is just astounding to see those pictures. You look at them and you don't want to even believe that they're real.
You know, we've heard about this so many times, but as far as we know, no one's actually ever seen these images. They're really quite remarkable.
Now, if the FAA says that a broken elevator is causing all of this, question, why don't they fix it, set up a break room downstairs?
Great question, Ernie. I mean, the short answer is the elevator's been out since March 2011, and apparently there's simply no federal funds to fix that elevator.
We'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll stay on top of this for sure.
Very well.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joel. Reaction tonight to our special exclusive report. Air controllers at Westchester County Airport texting, reading, and napping while planes are landing and taking off. It is Friday night. Good evening to you. I'm Ernie Anastas.
I'm Derry Alexander. Is a Fox 5 News exclusive, and you saw it first right here last night. Video and photos of air traffic controllers at Westchester County Airport.
Well, they appear to be napping and texting, and some have their feet up on the desk while sitting inside the control tower.
Now there are calls for a federal investigation. In fact, a U.S. Senator demanding answers and action. Here's Fox 5's Joel Waldman with more.
Swift action calls for the FAA to investigate what Fox 5 News exclusively uncovered. Air traffic controllers at Westchester County Airport either sleeping or otherwise distracted inside the tower. Their behavior caught on camera.
The first thing after seeing a report last night on the news is the first thing we got on the phone with the FAA to ensure that the fact that they were taking this seriously and that they were taking action to investigate this, and that they were prepared to take the appropriate action to make sure our airport is safe today and tomorrow.
Westchester County Airport Manager Peter Scherer declined to speak to Fox 5 before our initial report. He tells us he did not have enough information to respond at the time. But today, Scherer is talking, telling us the safety of the nearly 2 million passengers who fly through Westchester County Airport is his biggest concern.
Safety of is paramount to us. So when something comes up that concerns another agency, which we don't have any control over, we still have control and responsibility to address this with them and make sure that they're taking the appropriate action.
The video provided by a source inside Westchester Tower shows up to 10 controllers sleeping and using electronic devices in the tower. Under no circumstances, the FAA says, are air traffic controllers ever allowed to sleep anywhere in the tower. We pressed the FAA for a response to our findings. The agency gave this explanation. An elevator has been broken in the tower since last March. There were no federal funds to fix it. And because of that, the Controllers Union and the FAA came to an agreement to make the back portion of the tower cab a temporary break room. The executive director of the FAA Whistleblowers Alliance is not buying it. He worked at the FAA for 30 years.
To offer up the fact that that there might have been a problem with an elevator was the reason that the controllers couldn't go to the break room to take proper breaks was just is another example of the FAA being spring-loaded to give excuses when a deficiency is found, rather than to say, well, we do see that there's a problem here now, and we're going to take a look at it. We're going to look into it.
We showed New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand the video.
These images are extremely disturbing. If that is indeed the case, and there are air traffic controllers falling asleep on the job, it has to be reviewed and investigated in full.
Today, the senator took action. She sent this letter directly to the FAA's acting administrator, Michael Huerta, saying in part, I urge you to order an immediate and thorough investigation of these allegations to determine whether individual air traffic controllers and managers have violated workplace regulations that ban sleeping, using distracting devices and materials, and otherwise compromising safety.
They will react to her. Well, I think they're likely to come out with a statement saying that, reinforcing their initial statement that said that they were actually on break and they couldn't get to the break room because the elevator was broken. And then they'll probably go on further to say that we've decided to discontinue this practice, and we've either fixed the elevator or we've given instructions that the controllers must leave the cab when they decide to take their break.
Others want answers too. Westchester County Executive Rob Astorino sent this letter to the FAA, saying, I'm calling on you to conduct a full investigation into the troubling allegations made by Fox 5. The FAA's initial explanation that due to a broken elevator, controllers are allowed to use part of the control tower during their breaks seems totally insufficient. We heard from the FAA today. They criticized Fox 5 for not sharing our documentation before the story aired. They also said that they have already started an investigation, and they've also reached out to Senator Gillibrand's office. The agency tells us, quote, the FAA will review, thoroughly investigate, and take action as appropriate. They also said they've taken steps in the past to change fatigue recommendations as well as controller scheduling practices. Joel Waldman, Fox 5 News.
Tonight we have an update to a Fox 5 News exclusive investigation. The United States Office of Special Counsel has sent a letter to the President and Congress detailing more than half a dozen serious safety concerns by a whistleblower inside the FAA. Now, the letter blasts the Department of Transportation for not responding fast enough to employees' concerns.
It also mentions complaints from a whistleblower who first came to Fox 5 looking for some help in February.
Now, Fox 5's Joel Waldman has an update for us.
Surreal images of Westchester County Airport air traffic controllers sleeping, texting, and playing with laptop computers prompted a whistleblower inside the tower to come forward to Fox 5 back in February.
I'm upset and extremely concerned about the things that are taking place at Westchester Tower.
On-the-job misconduct so troubling, now the U.S. Office of Special Counsel has stepped in. sending a letter to both the president and Congress, not only about Westchester Tower, but also detailing at least 7 other disturbing disclosures made by FAA employees. 2 of those 7 right here in the New York City area. Carolyn Lerner with the Office of Special Counsel says it's her agency's job to protect federal whistleblowers.
They went to the appropriate people at the agency, reported their concerns, and either got no response or an inadequate response, and that's the only reason they came to our agency.
Which is exactly what our informant inside Westchester Tower said happened to him. He tried to handle the problem internally for months, speaking directly to supervisors, managers, and even the FAA's chief of staff. The whistleblower says the chief of staff promised action but never followed through. Not too surprising to the Office of Special Counsel.
In fact, what we found was that the FAA has the largest number of filings of virtually any agency in the federal government. And it has, as I mentioned, the highest rate of cases that we actually send to agencies for investigation.
Get a load of these numbers. On average, the Office of Special Counsel typically only takes on about 5% of the cases referred to them. But when it comes to the FAA, it takes on 50% of those cases. 90% of them are validated. The FAA, overseen by the Department of Transportation, continues to deny our repeated requests for interviews. Instead, it responded with this statement. DOT takes all whistleblower complaints seriously. DOT has been working with the Office of Special Counsel on these 7 cases since the original referral in February 2010.
They do have investigative procedures available, but they're not using them quickly enough or effectively enough.
Joel Waldman, Fox 5 News.
A Fox 5 investigation prompts a grieving family to break their silence. Back in February, we broke the story about air traffic controllers in Westchester asleep on the job.
Well, one family dealing with the sorrow from a tragic midair crash saw our report and were moved to speak out. Fox 5's investigative reporter Joel Waldman has their story.
I love you.
I met him and just fell in love with him.
From the moment Jeremy Clark and Danielle Granahan met in April 2006, they knew that one day they would get married, and so did Jeremy's mom, Bea.
We were over the moon. We were so excited. And of course, when we met Danielle, we couldn't wait for them to get married.
But Jeremy, who had moved to the States from New Zealand, wanted to get his career in order before getting hitched.
Well, he's always wanted to go flying. He's always wanted to pursue his flying career.
Aside from being next to Danielle, it was flying over the Hudson where Jeremy felt most comfortable, giving New York City visitors a tour they'd never forget. But Jeremy always worried about one thing.
Jeremy was concerned about flying and that area being so congested.
There was an accident which we do not believe was survivable.
A mid-air collision over the Hudson.
Back home across time zones in New Zealand, Jeremy's mom got the worst news of her life.
It was 4:50 in the morning. I was asleep, and my daughter rang me and told me that Jeremy had gone down.
On August 8, 2009, over the Hudson River, Jeremy's tour helicopter with 5 others aboard collided with a small plane carrying 3 passengers. That plane took off from Teterboro Airport. All 9 people aboard both aircraft died.
His chief pilot said Jeremy was a really great pilot and a really great man, and I said, Jeremy is. And he said, I'm so sorry. But I don't think that anyone could have survived.
And it was then that we were told that, yeah. I'm sorry.
Jeremy's fiance and mother have never spoken publicly about the crash until they saw this Fox 5 report about controllers inside the Westchester County Airport.
Feet up as planes come and go.
These are not the images you want to see of the people who hold so many lives in their hands.
Seeing the footage of the air traffic controllers sleeping on their computers, texting, playing games, I think it just shocked me so much.
Fox 5 News uncovered allegations about Westchester air traffic controllers out of control, some even sleeping on the job. One of their own came forward to expose it all. This is what our informant had to say back in February.
It poses an extreme threat to public safety. If someone's not paying attention, 100% attention, between separating arriving and departing aircraft, you can have a near miss or worse.
What we uncovered at Westchester Tower had nothing to do with the fatal Hudson crash. But Jeremy's fiance and mother worry about another fatal accident happening in this area again soon.
Something has got to be done for the safety of those other pilots and passengers.
We had this horrific tragedy and they don't care.
It just made me, as a parent, very angry.
So angry because of an extensive NTSB report from Jeremy's 2009 Hudson midair crash. It concluded that FAA controllers at New Jersey's Teterboro Airport were also heavily distracted at the time of Jeremy's accident. The report stated the local controller's non-pertinent telephone conversations distracted him from his air traffic control duties.
The NTSB took to task the air traffic controller in large part because of this personal phone call that the controller was having at the time that he should have been assisting the fixed-wing aircraft.
The NTSB also put some of the blame for the crash on the pilots, but attorneys Joseph Augustine and Justin Green still sued and recently settled with the federal government and other defendants on behalf of Jeremy's family. Listen to this. Just moments before the crash, the Teterboro controllers talking on the phone to a female friend who also works at the airport. They were talking about a cat who was hit and killed on the runway. The lawyers say it tells the story.
So we got plenty of gas for the
Yeah, today it kind of sucks that we won't be able to do it today.
Don't tell my fire up the cat.
Oh, disgusting. Oh, that thing was disgusting.
Chinese people do it, so why can't we?
Oh, stop it.
I don't know if you would call it just joke around, but that's what he was doing when he was supposed to be controlling the Piper airplane.
The Piper plane that eventually collided with Jeremy's helicopter. The NTSB report also cited the control tower supervisor for leaving the airport while on duty to run a personal errand. 2 others were on break, so at the time of the crash, only 2 of 5 FAA controllers were actually inside the Teterboro Tower, and one of them was on a personal phone call.
He's unsupervised and taking his attention away from controlling airplanes.
Even though 9 people died in the Hudson that day, incredibly, both the supervisor who was running personal errands as well as the controller who was on that personal call, both of them kept their jobs. The FAA transferred the controller to another airport in Newport News, Virginia.
I don't understand how 9 people can die and he can still be allowed to keep his job, because my whole life has changed.
Those men didn't do their job. That's what took my son away from me.
Say goodbye.
Bye, Bob.
Oh, wait, hold on. You're way too close. All right, say goodbye.
Bye.
Saying goodbye is something Danielle still doesn't know exactly how to do. She won't take off Jeremy's engagement ring.
You do your best, but we're never going to get married. We're never going to have the family we talked about. We're never going to spend our lives together.
The FAA sent us this statement saying, immediately after the Hudson midair collision in August 2009, the FAA began working on airspace changes to separate low-altitude local flights from flights transiting the river airspace. The FAA also initiated disciplinary actions against several air traffic employees and reassigned 2 employees to positions in smaller facilities. We reached out to the controller on the personal call that day, but we haven't heard back. The supervisor on duty that day says he can't comment. On a separate note, even though it's been over 4 months since we exposed the problem of sleeping controllers at Westchester Airport, the FAA has not released the results of their investigation. Of course, we'll keep you updated. Joel Waldman, Fox 5 News.